2, 1, silence.
Hello, everybody. Welcome on back. Hope you got your snacks. Hope you got your water. We are back with JP, and we are running East 9, Monstrum Nox, any percent. Take it away, JP. Stage is yours.
Yeah, once again, jphpue or JP for short, and this time we're gonna be going a little bit of a different round. Last run was glitchless, featherless, taking all the, well, unintended stuff away, and, well, you'll probably see in a bit that this game isn't following the same rules as the previous one. Anyway, I am not alone here. I have some community members here to help me with commentary. And first off, we have Froza.
Yeah, hi, I'm Frozer. I'm basically like a runner of this game since like the PC version came out in English, and yeah, I have seen a lot of stuff about this game that you will also be seeing. Yeah.
Why yes. And also Ghost Kumo. How's it going?
Hi everybody, I'm Ghost Kumo. I am the admin, I guess, of the speedrun scene for East and the Discord. I'm also a runner of this game, and I enjoy watching people break this game.
Oh, break. We're gonna break it, right? I hope.
I mean, no, though, that everything is intentional, right?
Yeah? As intended,
Absolutely.
definitely, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just using some developer shortcuts too. Yeah. Okay, but yeah, we're gonna be doing any percent on the easiest difficulty, and the time actually doesn't start on the difficulty selection, but after this one, we have a couple of games we could get some bonus items from, but we ain't gonna be acquiring them, so are we ready?
I'm ready.
Yep, same.
Yep, let's go. 3, 2, 1, let's roll.
When he says roll, he's not kidding, by the way. So the main form of movement in this game is, well, there's a couple different ones. One of them is just rolling as fast as you can. Pretty soon after here, once he gets a weapon, he's going to do what's called attack roll canceling, where he's going to attack and then just roll immediately thereafter, which gives him this weird flopping animation. It's great. So anyway, this is the 9th game, well actually 10th game in the East series, and the 9th game chronologically of Mr. Adol Christian's life. He's the red-haired swordsman protagonist who goes on adventures in every East game, and at this point in his life, he is so familiar with breaking out of prisons that he breaks out of prison at the start of the game. Which is kind of special because the city that we're in is this giant prison city known as Balduke. It's going to be where the game takes place over its course. So we're just breaking out of prison, and then we meet this girl here who is going to, in this cutscene that we skipped, who gives us our monstrum form, which is where we get this cape, this black kind of getup here. And what Adol can do in his monstrum form is to do what's called a crimson line. There are certain choice points that glow red that you can press the crimson line button and then just dash straight to. Some of optimizing the speed run is just knowing where they are and how to get to them as fast as possible and using them to zoom around the map. They're also involved for several glitches. So here's the first boss fight of the game, Marutudo. It is the sort of tutorial fight of the game. Want to get up right in his face and then hit him with a bunch of attacks, and then skills, which are bound to the 4 face buttons and pressing the right trigger. Once you do enough damage, you get this scene here and the boss kind of resets. The skills use SP, which is the little blue semicircle on the bottom right, and anytime he's about to hit you with an attack, if you press the guard button just before, you can get what's called a flash guard, meaning giving you a few seconds of mini crits where you do about 20% additional damage, and a couple seconds of invulnerability. So you really like flash guards because they up your damage quite a bit. So that was the tutorial boss, and that is the prologue of the game.
So, and you're probably wondering, how did you get into the prison in the first place? And that's where we basically start with the very first chapter, which is called Monstrum Nox. And as you can see, like it started 10 days prior. You're just visiting Balduke while traveling, and yeah, and then all of a sudden you get suspected for being a traitor from the Romans, I think, or something like that. I don't know the exact lore because it's like, again, it's like
they're called the Gaulians, which I think are based on like the Gaulish of like yesteryear of Central Europe.
Mhm.
Yeah, so this game is based on like old, I can't remember if it's old Paris
Old
or
France.
old Rome.
I think it's Old France or something like that, because like all of
Yeah.
the references are like very French, and
Mhm.
Gallians is also like some older folk that are like
Yeah.
close to France, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Anyways, so Edel's basically arrested because he's been on too many adventures. I'm kind of only half kidding about that. Because he's seen so many magical, mystical phenomenon and lived to tell the tale, and he's kind of infamous in this world for it. So he gets arrested because this prison city is corrupt and doesn't have any due process. So once he breaks out of prison, we need to find a disguise and then figure out the scope of things. So here we are in the main city of Balduke. This place lags like crazy. It's just not a particularly well optimized area for whatever reason.
yeah.
We find our name on a wanted poster, and then immediately you're summoned into our monstrum form into this like alternate dimension called the Grimwald Nox. And here we have to do a series of horde battles where we have to just fight a bunch of monsters. These are called Lemuries. They spawn in a bunch of different places. They're kind of the beings that inhabit these other worlds and are trying to destroy Balduke, so we need to prevent them from doing that. The monstrum form is sort of like a curse in the narrative, where it like grants us a bunch of power, but it prevents us from being able to leave. So we need basically the whole game. We're forced into this whole scenario to save the town and trying to figure out what the heck is causing this. But these horde battles, each one of these little black spots, usually 4 enemies will spawn out of it, sometimes more, sometimes less. So optimizing this really just comes down to knowing the enemy spawns pretty well.
Even if it looks like that there's like different spots on the map, it pretty much is scripted where like the mobs are spawning. So like JP just does memorize the pattern really well and just does them up right as they're about to spawn. And usually at the end there is like a mini boss, some kind of. So it's just like a bigger enemy of like another like regular Lemuries, and yeah, after like just killing that one, we're just pretty much done. You don't have to collect any additional mobs in that case. But yeah, that's the first one. Is basically also just a tutorial. As you can see, it's very quick to do. Nothing else that much.
Thankfully, this is the only one in the speed run. The nice thing about this is if you do this fast, i.e. if you even try, you'll get an S rank on here, which gets you a life elixir, which can be sold for 8,500 gold, which is quite a bit for this portion of the game. It normally gives you like 100 max HP. We actually don't want we don't want increased max HP for the run, so it's just better to sell.
Yeah, okay, so now you're probably wondering, okay, so we did like the very first part in like 6 minutes, right? So like the other chapters are probably like a little bit longer than that, right? Well, this is the part where like your things get incredibly broken. And if I mean incredibly, like there is like a bunch of sequencing that like we're absolutely not intended to do. And yeah, that's pretty much like the point where the story will not make sense from this point of the perspective of the runner, because yeah, we will just go traverse through like so many different sequences where like we're currently like at chapter 2, but like inside this chapter we will move to a like completely different chapter, like I think chapter 5 or 6 or something like that, and then
We kind of bounce around actually.
Yeah, so like there's like a bunch of story triggers that we also need to do, and they're like all over the place. Thing is, like this game is actually programmed pretty well when it comes to like not missing like any story triggers. However, there will be a point where we do some fancy stuff where we load additional triggers that usually are not supposed to be here. Otherwise, like yeah, but like the story of this game, like how it essentially got broke, is absolutely phenomenal. Like first we did like the first 3 chapters normally, like we did a part of the 4th chapter, and then we skipped all the way to the end of the game. Spoilers, this will also happen, by the way. And then we went to like chapter 3 and did the entire sequence at the end where we skipped everything. And now we're already at chapter 2, and that's where it's going to happen almost immediately. So usually what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to do like a bunch of quests here and there to get this Nox meter on the top of the left that you can see. If you get 100, then there is like a sequence that you have to do with another raid battle. We're not going to do that, as Ghost Kuma mentioned already. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump to this small platform, and then we try to jump over like an invisible trigger. Another thing is, like, normally you're not supposed to be in monstrum form all of the time, so we need to be specific at this spot to actually have like enough area mobility to get over the barrier. And yeah, so now we're in the old town. So what we're trying to do here is we're going to a specific place where like one of the small mini battles will trigger. I'm not sure like how they're called in the game.
Yes, these are the Lemuries. There's these little mini things where, you know, these curses are sealed away in this like graffiti, and when you kill them, it gives you 20 in the Nox meter on the top left. Any leftover that you have at the end of a chapter gets converted into Twilight Shards, which you exchange for resources. So this coming wall here, you're supposed to get the ability to run up walls once you get a White Cat, which is the Chapter 2 party member, but because we jumped into Shantytown early, all the sequences that force us to get her into our party aren't there, so we have to use some clever camera manipulation to Crimson Line to several different points that we otherwise couldn't be able to, and skip this entire dungeon without needing the ability to run up walls, which is normally like the barrier that keeps you in. So yeah, we just skipped straight into the Chapter 2 dungeon before doing so. This area has really good music, but sadly, it doesn't play if you skip into here too early, because there's a cutscene that's supposed to start it up. So there's also supposed to be a boss in that room that JP did, and that gets skipped. And now we're in Balduke Prison, where you're supposed to come in through here from several different points throughout the game. It's kind of this massive hub that you come in and out of as you break prisoners out of this corrupt prison. And in getting here early, all of the barriers that are supposed to like tie you down just aren't there. So it kind of just opens the game up considerably. And what JP is going to do next is roll to the West Wing prison cells, which are down like in the basement of the castle, it's like a castled prison, but this whole scenario is supposed to happen at the very end of Chapter 4. And this is important because the trigger for the end of Chapter 4 is in the sewers there. It's basically the only thing that you can really have access to that advances the story, but we're not going to quite do any of that just yet. Just going to head out to like the end of the dungeon of Chapter 4. He's going to dash up to this treasure chest here to pick up an item called the Blue Bandana, which lowers the cost of skills by about 20%. And then he's going to stand on this floor panel and wait for it to go down a specific amount. Once he does that, he's going to open up the menu.
I'm gonna die.
And, he died. Sometimes the enemies in this area are particularly mean and they aggro onto you. Thankfully, because he set this checkpoint there, his retry point was only a little bit behind.
There is another way that you can do without getting the aggro of the enemy. It's just by like save and reloading it, and it makes like the enemy just spawn a little bit later than he's supposed to.
So what he's going to do is he's going to open up the menu, go to the map, close it, open it again, and then that advances the game by like a frame, and he's going to hear a jump animation. Once he does this warp here, he's going to hold down on the map, and then once he's done that, he now has access to his monster form while in Balduke. That's the indicator that he's performed this trick successfully. Now, all of the barriers in this that are normally supposed to keep you out from different portions of Balduke are just gone. Like, normally you're supposed to unlock them by completing the game, but they're all gone, and all the triggers for, like, every single part of the game's story are active. So as long as he navigates around those, he can basically activate any story sequence in town that he wants. So he first sets a warp point in a Chapter 5 scenario, because we're going to want to come back to that pretty soon. And effectively what he does in order to enable this is he has jump and open the menu bound to the same frame. This is the trigger for when when you hold the floor panel down long enough, it kind of just messes with the game considerably. I'm not even entirely sure how it works, but we basically call it forcing cutscenes. Anyways, so that treasure chest that he opened is the trigger for the end of Chapter 4. But since we were in Chapter 2, it triggers the end of Chapter 2 instead, which kind of puts this game in this janky in-between state of being in Chapter 3 and Chapter 5. The base that we went to, the abandoned building where we found our disguise here, becomes our new hideout, which we kind of just hide in plain sight and set up a bar here. There's a whole bunch of things that you're supposed to do here, but he turns 20 of the Twilight Shards that he's got into a bunch of different items that can be exchanged for a Violet Glove, which is a accessory that makes it so all of his attacks do poison damage, which is going to be very important very soon. Once you talk to all the NPCs in the bar that the game wants you to, you can advance the game a little bit further.
Also, most important character coming up right there.
Shout out to Yufa.
Shout out to Yufa. Okay, so now we're going back to the concealed path, which is the end of chapter 4. Now we're doing the same trick pretty much over and over again to trigger like very specific cutscenes, as Gusko mentioned. And for this one,
because the game's now set in a quote-unquote not glitchy state, but he's gonna do the jump/warp here. Hold down the map and enter the arena to try and trigger the cutscene that starts up about here. And then once he enters the arena, Chapter 5 cutscene will start playing, and then Dogi loads correctly. You talk to him, triggers his scene, and then that allows us to get the 5th party member of the game, our second, but she's supposed to be the Chapter 5, like, 5th party member of the game, Raging Bull, aka Yufa. She's going to be our main damage dealer for the rest of the run, because Adol is level 5 right now?
yeah.
But I heard a funny
and in
thing.
getting her, in getting her, you also get the Chapter 4 party member doll, which you have to be careful with because she doesn't show up in the menu and you can just delete her from existence, which hurts, A, because she's the fastest moving character, and B, she having her in the party with Adol in this setup increases damage by 15% because she and Adol have the same weapon type.
So yeah, the reason why Doll is actually in the party is at one point in chapter 1, after like before you do like the raid to unlock the shantytown, she's going to be like a temporary member in the party for like a very short time, and then she will just leave immediately. And for whatever reason, whenever you get a party member, she will also join you. That is not the White Cat. So yeah, so we did unlock the Valkyrie Hammer, and what this does is not only does it unlock the skill to destroy the walls, it also gives all the other abilities of all the party members that you're supposed to have at this point. So, and it's going to
Basically,
be
we can run up walls and do the hover now, which are two essential abilities for the speedrun.
Mhm.
Alright, so now he's just going to do this trick once again, and the thing about this game is they actually tucked away the trigger for the like final dungeon and end game in the way eastern part of town. You're not supposed to be able to unlock that until like chapter 9, or the game's finale, essentially. But if you navigate around Balduke carefully, you can just circumvent all the barriers and get straight to the graveyard, which is the trigger for endgame. Make sure you don't forget to equip all your stuff.
That's good, and also not to fumble with the PS5 D-pad. I've done so many times, like, going right on the...
Okay, so what happens here is like we're basically triggering like the end of the game at this point. So now we're in an area where like we're fighting like a bunch of Lemuries that are like above level 50 and 60s, and that's why we actually use the poison glove. So in pretty much like any difficulty, you can inflict status elements with either specific skills or with equip, mostly the gloves. And with the poison gloves, we try to inflict poison, of course, and that does like a percentage amount of damage like every couple of seconds, which makes like this fight considerably faster. Otherwise, like you would be dealing like maybe 30 to 40 damage, but like yeah, since like there's like quite a lot of bigger enemies, you want to inflict it as fast as possible. And
it's especially important because for the plants, for example, they have resistance to strike damage, which is what Bull uses. They're weak to slash, but our two party members with slash damage are way under leveled, so we don't want to switch to them. So one of the ways we offset this, first of all, the like poison tick damage is just, you know, it adds up. We also eat a cheese gratin, which increases our EXP because we need to get as many levels out of this as possible for endgame. We also activate boost mode, which as long as you're in combat, it replenishes pretty quickly in this game. In East 8, the game had kind of an issue where later bosses could kind of become health sponges and it would be really hard to do enough damage, so they like supercharged your boost in this game. Unfortunately, what that ends up meaning is that like it is incredibly abusable and spammable. Or I guess fortunately for the speedrun, it turns combat into it makes combat a lot more hectic and a lot more spam heavy than in East 8. But when you use your boost, you regenerate health and your defense goes up considerably. Your defense also goes up considerably whenever you are in the middle of using a skill. So we use Bull's spinning attack, which generates a lot of those defensive, a lot of, you know, that armor, and then also on top of being in boost, which increases our armor considerably. We shouldn't die at any point in these fights as long as we're in boost. So this is the final wave here, this magic fish man that I like to call him. This Lemure is like really annoying. He's the one that's the hardest to inflict poison on. Different enemies have different levels of resistance to it, and you also kind of stack it, as noted by it, if the bar underneath them is like gray, yellow, or red, or orange. So unfortunately not getting with the poison.
Yeah, this is like one of the very big luck factors, I think, in this game, where this fight specifically, where you have to inflict poison to this final enemy, I guess, and you really want to have like as many stacks as possible, so he just dies faster. And if he doesn't do that, yeah, it will take a while. Like, we can whittle him down, luckily. We're like at a level where we can do like a decent amount of damage. And yeah, the same goes for here as well. There's like a bunch of like bigger enemies where we want to, if it's something like this angel-like creature, for example, that one is like not that troublesome to get the poison stack onto it, but like it depletes relatively quickly. And usually you focus down on the biggest enemy as possible. Also, there's some other like random enemies just spawning around you. Usually you just have to kill like a specific group of enemies to open up to the next area of the section.
Yeah. The screen kind of blurs for us. Yeah, the screen kind of blurs when that happens as your cue to like go. Yeah, there's 3 of these waves that you have to do. This is also good for experience. Thankfully, the cheese gratin lasts from if you use it at the start of the graveyard and you play quickly, it'll last you until, you know, the last wave of this set. Worth noting that he is in boost, so he moves faster, so he doesn't have to attack roll cancel. Yeah, thankfully he's been catching up in levels, so these enemy waves are going to be faster. The combat I can see looks kind of, some people say it can look kind of repetitive, but there is actually quite a bit of little like skill into it. What he's doing is he's using his 64 SP skill, which does the most damage, and then weaving in Valkyrie Hammer, which is her skill, which generates SP really quickly. On top of that, like, you're always looking for opportunities to get flash guards in between. You can't get it in the middle of an attack, so there's kind of a lot of, like, you know, weaving your combat timings to optimize damage. These enemies here have a Confuse ability, which is the worst because it reverses your control scheme.
I think poison stacking works quite well on the big dude.
Mm-hmm.
Something that's usually not the case. The
spinny dude
guy,
is
that is the
the
most
spinning dude
annoying.
is the problem with this one.
Yeah.
Why are you going away?
Okay.
No one.
Normally they're like supposed to be like in one small area, but like this specific guy just drills all over the place, and that's actually like the furthest that I've seen him go to.
And that's a never before for me, so that's a marathon luck right there.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So we did like the mini raid in that case. Now we're in your Baldu Fortress of Yore. We're going to do a bunch of things here. So again, because like I did like before, like we actually used Yufa for this run and had like the Valkyrie hammer to destroy those crystals. We had to do like an out of bounds trick in order to go through that barrier, because otherwise like you would be stuck here unless you have the Valkyrie hammer. Luckily for this room we don't have to do that. And here's the very most important item for this entire run that we're picking up, and it's called the War King's Cape, I think, right? Something
Yes.
like that?
So the War King's Cape, what it effectively does is the more damage you take, the more damage you deal. Up to a max of, if you're at 1 HP, you do 120% more damage, so more than double. So there's a couple of different things going on here. First, what he's going to do is he has a button bound to open the menu and do Crimson Line on the same frame, so he's once again going to use the map to buffer this, but he's going to repeatedly buffer and listen for a voice line.
Or like there's also like sometimes they just don't really do a voice line. Sometimes you just hear this, like the sound of the Crimson Line going off, and
Yeah.
after like depending on your PC, like really depending on your hardware, there's either like 8 or 10 or like 15 buffers that you have to do. I don't know why that's the case. It's a little bit annoying, but you know, it is what it is. It's a very stable game, as we have seen. And yeah, you can see like we're now out of bounds, and we're already like traveling to the center of the area, where normally you
Yeah.
would have to destroy like a couple of crystals to make those blocks appear or like go further up. We're just gonna skip that, and by doing that, we're just mashing like the flight skill and like switching up. So like we're hovering pretty much like on every
Yeah,
switch
so
that we're
this is
doing.
this is the extended jump hover. This is, you basically bind your character swap and I think it's character swap and evade on the same button, which we use Steam bindings for that. And you press jump at about the same time, and it causes the characters to stutter in midair rather than fall at their normal descent speed. And then while you're pressing the jump button, you're reactivating the glide. So this extends the glide to where you actually gain a little bit of height rather than losing height when you use it, and you can make it go a lot longer than it's normally meant to be. It is a bit tricky to get the timing down, but it lets you just circumvent like a lot of things you're normally not supposed to be able to do. The out of bounds also works because Crimson Line, it goes, the like dash animation goes through objects. So if you're able to buffer it frame by frame with the map button, you can do a save once you get your character to a position on, outside of the boundaries of a wall, and then load. And then once you've loaded, all the dash animation is canceled. So you just end up out of bounds. We're going to do this one more time in the run.
So what you're normally supposed to do here is there's like 3 different sections where you have to fight like a boss at every end of the section, and you have seen like you've seen JP open up a couple of chests, and those are important for an item that we're going to craft at the very end of the run. And what we need to do first, though, before we can craft those items, is we have to go to the Fool's Jail, and we have to grab an item called the Mythical Blueprint, which enables us to get the best weapons for every character at this point. And
Yeah, you can make one of each for every blueprint you get. Which we're going to use for Yufa because she is our primary damage dealer.
is it for every? I thought that like it's just you just need to get this one, and then you can just create it for every character.
I don't remember. It's been a while since I played this game casually.
That's-
So now he's
that's
going to work
true.
back to the dandelion. He's going to see these kids sitting on non-existent chairs because we are in a very weird story state at this point. You're supposed to save them in a quest in Chapter 2, but they join you automatically otherwise. But yeah, this kid here is a son of a blacksmith, and so he helps you with weapons, creating things and whatnot, and you can give him the blueprint and he will make the best weapons in the game.
So we're crafting the best weapon for Yufa again. That's just our main damage dealer for the entirety of the run. And as you
Yeah,
can
so-
notice, it gives this such a big damage boost. It's like almost like three times. the
200,
attack.
it's plus 200 in strength. Once again,
Oh.
going to do a Crimson Line clip here. save and load, and then he should be past this barrier. So like Frozer said, you have to go through these 3 different areas, fight these 3 bosses, and then those eventually get rid of the barrier. But since you can just Crimson Line through it, there's no need to do that. Anyways, so now we're heading up to the final boss. Worth noting that he actually de-equipped armor from Yufa, and this is because we want to deliberately sandbag in the final boss to get to lower health values. And in doing so, we increase the amount of damage we do considerably because of the War King's cape. So this is why I mentioned, like, we don't want more health. We actually want to be at as low a HP as possible for this fight. So he's going to use a level up item that we got in I believe it was in the first raid. Use it on Yufa now, and then also increase the amount of EXP she gets because it's a 2-phase final boss, and the first phase does give EXP.
Also important to notice. Oh yeah.
Go for it. Yeah, this fight's like 3 minutes of repetition, so.
Oh, perfect. So we have a $2 donation from Tempest Mask 1000. jphpue 2, Electric Boogaloo. Props to putting yourself up to the test between a long and shorter run for this year's event, my dude. Let's dash again soon. Thank you so much. He donated those $2 to Curse Crackers, Upgrade, and Pull Save the Animals. Thank you so much, Tempest Mask. Appreciate it.
So this boss here is nobody in particular. Goes by the name of Atronox Phyllis, because this game has a lot of references to things in Latin. Just slightly amusing given Falcom's penchant for naming things in German instead. But he has a lot of attacks that can do a decent amount of damage, but since we're actually intending to take damage here, he's just going to be repeatedly spinning and doing damage until he gets down to 1 HP or gets knocked out. So this is actually a time where he bought 20 black figs, which are a revival item that restore you to 100 HP. This is where those would really come into play.
So like even if you die here, you can just revive. Well,
Yeah.
at 100 HP, which is like a pretty good amount. So yeah, like the thing is, like with this fight is like you really want to like again be at very low HP and flash guard, flash move, and also like be in boost mode as much as possible. And since we're like at a low amount of HP, what we're trying to do is like we're using like the skill that we always use, and then this fills up the SP bar, and then we immediately use our special.
Yeah,
because
so the extra skill here can do like almost 8,000 damage, which is quite a lot.
And not only that, we're trying to not be as much in the boost mode as possible, because again, as Goskumo mentioned earlier in this run, whenever you are in boost mode, you also heal up by a little bit. So that's why we're trying to manage like the SP bar, like the extra bar, the SP bar, and the HP bar at the same time. Even like the fight looks like pretty much all of the other fights where we just use our SP skills. Just try to dish out as much damage as possible. There's a lot of micromanaging behind it, which you barely notice it if you have never played the game or like watched any run of it before.
JP here is also kind of a mad lad and doesn't lock on to bosses, which I actually kind of respect, because the thing about this game is it uses like every button on your controller and is surprisingly annoying to try and like do everything you want. It uses every button on the controller and then like 3 keys on your keyboard at the same time. So
my mapping is so weird and I run out of proper keys.
makes
So, yeah,
sense.
Could I use a pedal for long?
So yeah, this is Anima Astrologum. This guy is basically a two-part fight. First, we have to take out like a bunch of like those green, anything that is green.
Anything
at
that's
this
glowing green, yes.
Yeah. And we're also using pretty much like the same bread and butter strategy as for like any other.
Okay, so this is good.
This is a very good attack to get. So this attack does quite a lot of damage if you don't flash guard it. It does like almost half of your HP, which at this point in the game is quite a lot. again, we want to be as low HP as possible. The problem is like for this particular fight, like this guy doesn't really attack that much during the entire fight, which is a little bit annoying if we want to do like the low HP strat. But yeah, you kind of have to do what you have to. You kind of have to deal with it pretty much if you are in like low HP amount or not. Which is a little bit unfortunate because this is pretty much like there's like not a lot of RNG in pretty much most of the run, except for this fight and the graveyard fight that we were before we entered the fortress. So yeah, this was the first phase, very quick. And now in the second phase we are going up. Now there's those 6 different kind of spikes, and we have to destroy them one by one. And only one of them is actually like weak to our attacks. And that's why we use Doll Skill, which reveals pretty much like hidden paths or weaknesses of monsters, or like even hidden enemies. And by doing that, we're just switching like from platform to platform. We pray that all of the weakness spots are like at one side, and we hope that we don't move as much as possible. Unfortunately, JP has to do that. At one point, there's those platforms that fall down if you're standing there for a little bit too long. But he's doing a really good job at it, and I'm glad that you actually target this at least, because otherwise, oh boy, this is like a very annoying boss to deal with. So after we destroy those spikes, like his actual weak spot appears, and he's like at a quarter of his HP, and then we have to do it the second time again. And yeah, and that's pretty much actually it for this boss fight. There's like not a lot of things that can be dangerous. Again,
yeah, he can. The second phase, he starts shooting lightning, which can be hard to see because his third eye is just like it's hard to see anything with third eye active in this fight because there's so much red. Admittedly, this fight doesn't take super long because he is doing the easy difficulty, but part of the reason you run on the easy difficulty is on higher difficulties, there's a glitch that you can do to just generate the level up item over and over, which just makes the game like you just do the final boss at level 99 on the like Inferno and Lunatic difficulties. So it's like doing it on the easier difficulty is largely a very similar route.
Oh, he's gonna go for that one.
Just for the why
Hell
not? And also the final boss, an egg.
Yeah, the egg. Also, you're not. This makes me. Yeah, you're an absolute meta. So
there's supposed to be a whole bunch of voices to play here that tell you things that make sense if you've played the rest of the series and don't make as much sense if you haven't. I believe he's got voice lines disabled, so this just looks like him just hitting an egg for several minutes. Flashing white light warning, by the way. I always get that. This gets to be a bit much. Anyways, after that, there's the running around town saying farewell to everyone, and then we leave town, and that's time.
Pretty much, yeah. I think like this is the only game where it does have a lot of references to like previous games. I think that otherwise like the other games you can play at any order, but I feel like for this one, it's not necessary if you played like the previous games beforehand, but you get a lot of more reward for like having played those games for like certain references.
Yeah, it was like the 35th anniversary, or no, it was like 33rd anniversary. What am I thinking? They kind of make this game a celebration of the series on the whole in some ways. By the way, there's 2 doggies here.
Yeah.
Oh, are you gonna show them the Parks thing? If you go look at Parks.
This is great.
Parks or Park Junior? Which one you want to talk to? He parked in the wrong alley.
Yeah, so basically the game is in 2 different chapters at once because he was in chapter 3 when he beat the game, so it's like now the game's in chapter 4, but it's also an endgame at the same time. Yeah, so just going around talking to the friends we made along the way. Um,
Yeah, especially Jules. Shoutouts to Jules. He was a very
Somewhere.
integral part. Yeah,
somewhere.
somewhere.
Yeah, so shoutouts to Mabo and Jado and Lost, probably the three people who have had the most influence on the route of this game, I would say.
Mhm.
At different phases. Mabo is kind of the one who broke this game from like fairly broken to really broken, and that's time.
Or not. Wait a minute. Okay, the time
you
doesn't
just
want to
book
come up,
you?
so... Okay, now it's time.
Ah,
Okay. The splits were hidden. So I just had to...
I saw 3807 on the timer there.
That's something.
Dang, dude, that's
That's
pretty
pretty
good for a marathon, man.
Thanks. Well, a couple of things went a little bit south, but overall I think that was a really good run. Big thanks to you both for coming up. The commentary seats.
honestly, I'm a little bit sad that we didn't see like the ending sequence of this of the actual game. That one is really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably like my favorite one out of all these games.
Yeah, so
But
you
yeah,
can play
like the
most of them in any order, other than like Origin references 1 and 2. A lot of people say play Origin, then 1 and 2, or 1 and 2, then Origin, and then pretty much everything else is
Mhm.
fine.
which is actually quite funny now that we mention it. Didn't East 10 just get released in Japan like
Yeah.
yesterday or
Yep,
something
like a
like
couple days ago.
Yeah.
that?
We're hoping to see that one, although it'll be interesting because I think it's a different engine.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, it is.
Oh. We'll see how
Yep.
broken it gets. I mean,
It probably will be pretty
Yeah,
broken.
I mean,
That's
give
how
it to
these things
certain
go.
someone and it might be time to reset the counter again.
Alrighty then. Well, thank you so much for demonstrating these two games one after another. Excellent times on both. GG to that, and get those GGs in chat, the hypes in chat. Thank you again, JP, for spending the time to be able to run for Pixels for People. We really do appreciate it. Up next, everybody, is D and Keto with Berry Brother, any percent. So stick around. We're going to take a small break, catch up on some time, because these runs were just so quick and just so good. So grab yourself some water, grab yourself a snack, stretch your legs. Just remember that you're a planet with complicated emotions, and come on back real soon. See you all in a little bit.